Homosexuality was both a crime and an illness at that time in Ukraine. Just 4 years later, an outstanding Ukrainian and Armenian film director, Sergei Parajanov, was arrested in Kiev for sodomy, the rape of a Communist Party member, and Ukrainian nationalism. 1 year later, I was born. Earlier, my father had been imprisoned for his anti-Soviet activities. The decriminalisation of homosexuality was one of the first 12 laws enacted in January 1992 in a newly independent Ukraine. I grew up left-handed, and my name was quite uncommon, so I was never uncomfortable with being the odd man out. After 10 years of decriminalisation, being gay was still a sin and a curse in Ukraine. I was living in Lviv, thinking I was the only one of my kind. Soon after, I moved to the capital to work for a gay NGO. In May, the first ever successful Pride March was held in Kiev. I was working to ensure the security of the participants. In November, I became an active participant in the Euromaidan protest movement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the campaign coordinator for the Ukrainian branch of Amnesty International, Zoryan Kiss.
Oh, hi everyone. How do you feel after the beer? Yeah, I will have mine after my presentation. Yeah, first of all, I would like to say big thank you to my Russian and my Czech colleagues for the words of solidarity. It is really important to have this when part of your country is now occupied and there is a current permanent threat of the occupation of the other part of the country. So I have to also say that I will be speaking in my personal capacity, not on behalf of Amnesty International. This is very important as well. So when I visited my first gay pride march in New York 2008, I was overwhelmed. I was excited. I did not think anything like that would be ever possible in my country. Well, at least for next 20 years. But last year, in 2013, I helped organize first ever successful gay pride march in Kyiv, the capital of my country. Just 80 brave activists marched there 200 meters of pride, and they were guarded, they were protected by 1,500 policemen. The police was protecting us from hundreds of counter-protesters, which would normally fight with each other, because part of them was pro-Russian monarchists, and part of them were Ukrainian nationalists. They would kill each other in a normal situation, but they came together to fight with us. Yeah, I have a short video that would give you an idea how that felt. Can I have the first video, please?
Коли ми говорили і заявляли про нашу підтримку маршу рівності, і ми говорили про те, що це зобов'язання, це не лише наша позиція, а це зобов'язання держави, України у відповідності до тих договорів міжнародних, які Україна підписала. Моя гордість, права людини, моя гордість.
Права кожної людини можуть бути порушені кожної хвилини. Щомиті ми можемо стати жертвою дискримінації. Я вважаю, що права людини – це права для усіх.
Підорасам не місце в Україні! Дорогі наші,
So, yeah, as you can see, it was a successful pride. Well, just for 80 people, but also for the whole country. And that was no entertainment. That was a march for human rights. That was a march for our dignity and a march for acceptance of the people in Ukraine. At that time, there were two laws in the parliament pending, so-called anti-gay propaganda laws. They were basically copy-pasted from the similar law in the Russian Federation that you have heard about before, and those laws, if they were adopted, they would make homosexuality basically illegal again in my country. And the justification for those laws was very simple. The members of the parliament wanted to adopt those laws, first to protect the children from getting infected with homosexuality, and second, to protect the state from homosexual dictatorship, whatever that meant. Well, I wish there was such a thing. Yeah, thank you. But at the same time, the country was on its way to a real dictatorship. And those anti-gay propaganda laws were just first laws introducing censorship. Later on, another law, so-called defamation or libel law, was introduced in the parliament, and it was imposing more censorship, and it was imposing enormous fines for investigative journalism. And again, you know, East meets West in Ukraine quite often. Ukraine was also on its way to Europe, because the government, for 2 years, the government was explaining how good it would be to sign an association agreement with Europe, how good it would be part of the European community. And then, all of a sudden, it made a U-turn on its foreign policy, and President Yanukovych and his government decided to join so-called Russian world, or the customs union with Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. We had an agreement with my partner, Timur, who's here tonight, that we will leave the country if the country decides to join customs union. But fortunately, many Ukrainians did not accept this decision, and the protests have started. They have been called the Euromaidan protest or the Revolution of Dignity. We spent next 3 months fighting for our rights and fighting just for a chance for our nation to become a European nation. We spent those months on the main square of Kyiv, shoulder to shoulder with people of all ages, all professions, men and women, Russian and Ukrainian speaking, and also liberals and conservatives. That was not the time for divisions. We knew that many people at the Maidan did not share our values. I got threats on social networks that I will be burned after the communists. That were, of course, threats from the right-wing people. But anyway, I was at the Maidan with my friends and with many LGBT people who were there. We made a very difficult decision for us. We decided not to take rainbow flags to the protest. We knew that there were rainbow flags in Turkey. We knew there were rainbow flags even in Russia. But we decided not to take them to the Maidan. We knew that the Maidan would split around LGBT rights, and we knew that the horror story about degradation of Europe because of gays will be used against us and against the Maidan and against the whole idea of Ukraine joining European Union. And it was. First, the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Azarov, has officially announced that the association agreement with the European Union requires Ukraine to legalize same-sex marriage. Again, I wish it did, but it did not. It was lies. And second, there was another crazy idea which unfortunately was implemented. Someone decided to organize a fake gay march in the Maidan. And I have another video which I would like to show you, and I will be commenting as it goes on. This video from a news report shows people who were hired for money. Almost none of them were LGBT. They were just people who normally work for different events. They were hired, they were dressed like clowns, and they were dancing in front of those, strong men trying to protect them. And then we came to inform the society that this was a total provocation, that the people were paid to take part in the march, and that the purpose of the march was to provoke violence in the Maidan and to split the Maidan around the idea of LGBT rights. I remember when those people approached the Maidan, and we were able to inform everybody there that this was a fake march and that we were not part of it. I remember an older man in camouflage who was in charge of the security for Maidan, and he was walking around, he was smiling, and he said, "We have read at the official web page of the LGBT movement of Ukraine that they are not part of this provocation." Probably this was the first time when he put LGBT and Ukraine in the same sentence. Yeah. And one of our posters that we brought to this action said that this was a classical political technology of Kremlin, which is first they create an artificial threat, then they turn people against each other, and then they adopt laws to protect someone from someone. And indeed, on January 16, the parliament has adopted so-called dictatorship laws, which basically made any protest illegal. And again, they were copy-pasted from a set of different laws in Russia. And unfortunately, those laws resulted in violence, and over 100 people were killed at the Maidan. Later, after the protest, President Yanukovych and his team have left the country, and we have found out that this fake gay march has been organized by the Security Service of Ukraine, or the former KGB. And that was the only time when we were able, and we felt we had to come out during the Maidan. I was very happy that my country got a new president, and the city that I live in, Kyiv, got a new mayor. Many of you probably know Mr. Klitschko, a well-known boxer who now became the mayor of Kyiv. But soon we were quite disappointed, because while we were preparing the gay pride march this year in July, Mr. Klitschko said that this is not the right time for entertainment. The police refused to protect the march, and it had to be cancelled for security reasons. So apparently it seems it was easier to organize gay march under the dictatorship than it is now under the pro-European government in Ukraine. So for us, this was also a revolution of dignity, but not the end of the revolution. That was just a start, a chance for us to become really members of this society, a chance for Ukraine to become a European country. Whether it will use this chance or not, that is the question. Thank you.